I wasn't chasing success. I was chasing approval. And it nearly erased who I was. I spent a long time trying to look confident on the outside. Years, actually. But beneath the calm tone and steady posture, one question kept looping in my head. Quiet, relentless. Is this enough? Here's the truth I avoided for years. The harder I worked to impress people, the smaller my world quietly became. My name is Michael, and for a long time I was living a life that didn't truly belong to me. From the outside, everything seemed fine. I had a stable job, clean, well-chosen clothes, a practiced smile that suggested confidence. Online, my life looked intentional, organized, promising. My social media showed direction, even when I had none. But every decision I made passed through the same invisible filter. How will this look? What will people think? Will this earn approval? I wasn't living. I was curating. I didn't share photos to remember moments. I shared them to be seen, to be confirmed, to feel like I mattered. Likes became evidence of worth. Comments became emotional reassurance. Silence felt like rejection. I told myself it was normal, that everyone did this. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. There was one night I'll never forget. I tried to record a short, simple video, just a personal story. I recorded it again and again and again, more than 20 times. Not because the message was unclear, but because my voice didn't sound impressive enough. My tone didn't feel confident enough. My face didn't match the image I wanted to project. Every replay felt like a failure. Delete, record, delete. Eventually I stopped. I stared at the screen in silence, tired, drained, completely empty, and still not satisfied. That same pattern followed me everywhere. At work, I measured every word before I spoke. If I thought my idea might sound ordinary, I stayed quiet. Not because I lacked thoughts, but because I feared being overlooked. I wasn't afraid of being wrong. I was afraid of being average. So I learned to hide. Behind silence, behind professionalism, behind careful timing. Outside of work, I bought things I didn't need. A watch I couldn't afford, clothes that looked successful, not because I loved them, but because I wanted to resemble someone who had their life together. Receipts piled up, notifications went unanswered, and my reflection felt more unfamiliar each day. Every night, when the noise finally stopped, a heavy feeling settled in my chest, like I was performing a role that never ended, a character I couldn't step away from. That's when I realized something painful. When your life is built on approval, peace is never stable. The more validation I received, the more dependent I became on it. Nothing ever felt like enough. One evening at 9:40 p.m., I sat alone in my apartment. The lights were off. The room was silent. Only the glow of my phone filled the darkness. I refreshed the screen, again and again, waiting for something, anything to quiet my thoughts. Nothing did. That's when the anxiety grew louder. What if they stop liking me? What if I fall behind? What if people realize I'm pretending? The fear wasn't sudden. It had been building for years. I was exhausted from performing, exhausted from explaining myself, exhausted from chasing expectations I never consciously chose. A few days later, I met my friend Ryan for coffee. He looked at me for a moment longer than usual. Not judgmental, just observant. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I answered instantly. Too instantly. He didn't respond right away. "You don't sound okay," he said calmly. I laughed, changed the subject, but he didn't let it go. "You're always trying to be impressive," he continued. "And honestly, I don't think you even know who you're trying to impress anymore." That sentence followed me home. Later that night, I stood in front of the mirror, not adjusting my appearance, not checking flaws, just looking, really looking. I didn't see confidence. I saw someone disconnected from himself, someone exhausted from pretending. And another truth finally became clear. The more I tried to become someone others admired, the further I drifted from who I actually was. Something inside me cracked, quietly, without drama. There was no announcement, no post, no declaration of change. I simply stopped. I turned my phone off, not forever, just for that night, and I sat in silence. It felt uncomfortable, unfamiliar, but for the first time in a long while, it felt honest. That was the moment everything shifted. I made a decision. I would stop proving myself and start building myself. Slowly, intentionally, quietly. The next morning didn't arrive with fireworks. There was no sudden breakthrough, no rush of clarity, no powerful feeling that my life had finally begun. There was only silence. And for the first time in years, that silence didn't feel hollow. It felt real. I didn't grab my phone as soon as I opened my eyes. Not because I was trying to be disciplined, not because I wanted to prove anything. I simply didn't feel the pull anymore. The phone rested untouched beside the bed, and I let it stay there. I stood up at 6:30 in the daytime. The room was still half asleep. The city outside moved slowly, quietly. For once, I wasn't in a hurry to be noticed. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and did absolutely nothing impressive. No planning, no posting, no performance. That's when I noticed something unexpected. My thoughts felt slower, but clearer. Before my mind was crowded, every thought fighting for space. What should I share? What am I missing? How do I stay relevant? Now there was room to breathe. That day I worked in silence. No updates, no hints of progress, no quiet hope that someone would ask how I was doing. At first the stillness felt uncomfortable, like I was falling behind in a race I couldn't see. The old voice returned. If no one sees this, does it even matter? What if they forget about you? What if staying quiet makes you invisible? I didn't argue with those thoughts. I didn't explain myself. I let them pass. That evening, around 8:45 at nighttime, I picked up my phone out of habit. I scrolled for a few minutes, saw people celebrating achievements, launching projects, living perfect lives with perfect routines. I felt the familiar pull in my chest. I opened the app, typed a short post about a small win from that day. Nothing dramatic, just enough to be seen. I read it once, then again, and suddenly I recognized the emotion behind it. It wasn't pride, it wasn't gratitude, it was need. The need to be acknowledged, to be reassured, to hear that I was doing things the right way. I deleted the post, turned my phone face down, and sat there quietly. That moment mattered more than I realized, because something became clear. If my progress depends on approval, then my freedom will always be fragile. From that day forward, I made a private promise to myself. I would stop explaining my choices, stop defending my pace, stop shaping my life so it made sense to people who weren't living it. The change showed up at work first. I stopped forcing confidence into my voice, stopped rehearsing sentences before meetings. When I had something to say, I said it. When I didn't, I stayed quiet. The world didn't fall apart. No one laughed. No one dismissed me. Instead, something unexpected happened. People listened more closely. One afternoon, a coworker named Daniel noticed it. We were walking back from a meeting. "You seem different lately," he said. "More grounded." I shrugged. "Maybe I stopped trying so hard." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's exactly it." That conversation stayed with me, not because it praised me, but because it confirmed something important. I didn't need to perform to be respected. Still, the challenges didn't disappear. Old habits knocked on the door. A compliment that tempted me to chase more. A comparison that triggered doubt. A silence that felt almost too quiet. One night I stood in front of the mirror, not adjusting my appearance, not judging what I saw, just standing there. And I asked myself a simple question. If no one ever applauds this version of me, would I still choose it? The answer arrived instantly. Yes. And with that answer came another truth. Real confidence doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't demand validation. It exists even when no one is watching. My habits became smaller, quieter, more private. Reading a few pages every night instead of collecting quotes. Training without mirrors or progress photos. Writing thoughts meant only for me. I began protecting my focus the same way I once protected my image. Slowly my energy returned. Not loudly, not dramatically, steadily. I slept deeper, thought clearer, made decisions without replaying them 100 times. The anxiety didn't vanish completely, but it lost its control over me. I wasn't building a persona anymore. I was building trust with myself, and that changed everything. Here's what surprised me the most. When I stopped trying to impress others, my life didn't become louder. It became quieter, simpler, more honest. I stopped asking, how does this look to them? And started asking, does this align with who I'm becoming? That question reshaped my days. If you're listening to this and you feel exhausted, it might not be because you're doing too little. It might be because you're trying to be someone you're not. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to justify your path. You don't need permission to live truthfully. Real growth begins the moment you stop proving yourself to others and start building yourself for yourself. Quietly, consistently, without applause. And that kind of growth lasts.